So good afternoon to one and all. Hope all of you are keeping safe in these turbulent times. It has been almost 6 months that we switched on to the online mode of education in the wake of this global pandemic, as we believe that learning should never stop. Along with all these regular classes, we do have the privilege of listening to some of the industry professionals who have been kind enough to spare time from their otherwise occupied schedules for such interactive dialogues with our students. It is indeed beneficial for all of us, as knowledge dissemination also helps in knowledge creation. So in continuation with the series of guest lectures, we have today with us Mr. Samarth Pathak, Communications Officer and Focal Point Education for Justice Initiative, Regional Office for South Asia, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. We welcome you, sir, to Amity University, Patna.
Thank you so much.
And before I hand over the session to you, let me introduce you to all the attendees. Mr. Pathak is based at New Delhi and is a public advocacy specialist with a keen interest in human rights, sustainable development goals, and regional security. He is currently associated with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, where he coordinates communications and public advocacy for South Asia, as well as youth-focused initiatives to promote peace and the rule of law as part of the Education for Justice global program. During COVID-19, he has also spearheaded the Lockdown Learners, an initiative to strengthen youth engagement and action on peace, the rule of law, and SDGs through dialogues and activity-based learning. This also aims at empowering students and educators with limited internet access through WhatsApp, audio recordings, and interactive dialogues. Prior to UNODC, Sir has worked as a journalist with Reuters TV and subsequently moved to the policy advocacy space with strategic roles in international think tanks. His experience encompasses policy analysis and advocacy, track 2 diplomacy, strategic communications, and news reporting and production. He has been a regular writer for the Huffington Post, and his reports and op-eds have previously appeared in Medium, The Guardian, the Reuters Alternate, The Dawn, Hard News, and the Asian Age. Sir has joined us today to speak on the very pertinent topic of youth as catalysts of inclusive and resilient societies and why action for peace and SDGs matter. With these words, now I hand over to you, sir. Welcome, sir, and over to you.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and thank you so much for this opportunity. It is really great to join and see you all today. I thank Dr. Shweta Priya and the Amity School of Communication, Patna, and the Amity University, Patna, for extending this invitation to me and giving us the opportunity to reflect on this very pertinent theme today. Before I begin, I do hope that all of you and your loved ones are safe and well. The past few months have been unprecedented, and I urge you to focus on your families and those around you and take care of one another during these very troubled times. Let me start by sharing a bit about who I am and where I come from, although a very detailed and a very good introduction has been given. Thank you so much, Shweta ji. But my name is Samarth Pathak, and I work at the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, as the Communication Officer and the Youth Focal Point for South Asia. I do believe that all of you are aware of what the United Nations is, and some of you may have been involved in United Nations initiatives before, maybe with some agencies or maybe model UNs or something like that. But I do hope that you're all familiar with the UN process. So as some of you may know, UNODC is a specialized branch of the UN Secretariat that focuses on crime prevention, peace, justice, and health. We work in over 115 countries around the world, and the office where I work, the UNODC Regional Office for South Asia, is located in New Delhi. This office covers 6 countries of the region: Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Maldives, Nepal, and Sri Lanka. What does UNODC do? Well, this is a very simple, answer because the hint is in our name. We work on addressing drug use and countering organized crime. Addressing drug use includes things like prevention, treatment, and rehabilitation of drug users, support to their families and communities, prevention of related diseases like HIV/AIDS and hepatitis C, and also countering the drug supply by working with law enforcement and countering drug production and supply, how drugs come into the market. The other component, of course, is organized crime, which includes crimes like human trafficking, where human beings are bought and sold for exploitative purposes, cybercrime, extremism and terrorism, wildlife crimes, crimes that take place in international waters, corruption, violence against women and children and girls, among other things. But youth, young people like you, and I would also count myself and Shweta ji also in this, but youth form a key part of our work. And for this, we have a very important global program, the Education for Justice Initiative, which, under which we are meeting today. The UNODC Education for Justice Initiative supports the implementation of the 2015 Doha Declaration and aims at promoting peace, justice, the rule of law, human rights, and the SDGs through education. The idea is to seek the participation of youth in co-creating solutions to address some of these issues, to solve some of these crimes, and give a platform for youth voices and actions at the United Nations. I'll be very happy to share more details about this with you, and I'm positive that this will be of great interest to you and all the educators here. We could perhaps plan more sessions in the coming days as well. Anyway, so I've been really excited to meet all of you since the past several days, as soon as this invitation was extended to us. The reason is that you are all students of communication and law, I believe. And I too have been a student of journalism and communication myself. If I was to ask you, I mean, of course, I would love to hear your voices later. But if I was to ask you, why do you think this field of communications or law is important for society, for peace, for justice? What would be your answer? Perhaps it could be that communications triggers a lot of thought, triggers, interaction between societies, between communities, between individuals, of course. And that is how, you can nurture peace. Perhaps that would be one of your responses. You would be right, if that would be your answer, you would be right. We need communication for dialogue, to talk and share our thoughts with each other, but more importantly, to listen and to understand the other person and give a platform to the other person to put their views forward. We need communication to build peace and harmony in the society rather than creating divides or rifts. I have always been a proponent of this personally. We have a lot of debates that take place in different, in schools and universities, where one side wins and the other side loses. My personal, push would always be for dialogue, where you come at a consensus. You come at an agreement. You give some, you take some, but you come at a common consensus, and nobody wins or loses. Everybody basically wins. Peace can only be built if two people from different mindsets, different backgrounds, different attitudes meet, interact, share their opinions with each other, listen and understand the other person. That is the most important role that communication can play for social peace. And this, COVID-19 is the most critical time for all of us, young people, you and I, to be talking about working towards peace and the rule of law through communication and other means. We must be striving towards using our skills, our awareness, our knowledge, our talents to build resilient societies that are peaceful, that are just and fair, that are inclusive, that leave no one behind, while they're helping others, and which strengthen the sustainable development goals. As you know, COVID-19 has impacted billions of people, around the world. Over 200 countries are affected, and governments across the world are grappling with this crisis. It is at its core a health issue. Of course, it is a pandemic, but measures to contain it have also impacted other spheres of life that I'm sure all of you are aware of. For example, education. Education has been affected since schools and universities are shut. Uh, you are online right now, but there are so many students across the world in schools and in universities who don't have access to the internet, or at least uninterrupted internet. And this has led to a lot of digital divides. And digital divides are also a form of discrimination. And discrimination, of course, eventually threatens peace. Similarly, economy has been affected. You may know, factories have been impacted, economic growth is impacted, jobs have been lost. There has also been an impact on social harmony. How citizens behave with each other, how citizens and government interact with each other, how governments interact with each other. In the social space, you may have come across instances where there are reports of discrimination against people who may look a certain way, or who are from a certain background, or for whatever reasons. Misinformation is there. There's a lot of rumor mongering going on, fake news, wrong information in the social media sphere, especially. There is a lot of cybercrime. Cybercrime cases have increased a lot, since most of the people are either working or studying online. Many people, at least. There is gender-based violence. There have been numerous reports that suggest that domestic violence at home has increased manifold during this period of lockdown, because of different reasons. There are a lot of pressures in the family dynamics now. There is also an adverse impact on community peace and well-being. To put it in a nutshell, uh, COVID-19 has impacted the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. And therefore, it is a very good time to actually talk about these issues, to have these conversations, even if it's virtual, at least we are connected, at least we are connecting and talking about these very important issues. Uh, I will hope that some of you are aware of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Uh, I will run through this very quickly. The UN Sustainable Development Goals are basically a to-do list for the planet that have been accepted by governments and societies. They are broad objectives that basically guide governments' work to make the planet a better place to live. They came into being in 2015 and aim at creating a world of peace and prosperity by 2030. It is like a vision, for all the governments and all the, NGOs, all stakeholders in the development and peace process to follow. Overall, there are 17 goals with 169 very detailed targets covering issues ranging from poverty to reducing inequalities, gender justice, sustainable cities, education, environment, and health. Uh, if you see that image, it's all over the on Google and on different platforms. You will, if you look at that SDG framework, you will realize that this is the world's attempt to build a better future for all. The best part about the SDGs are that they are interconnected, and which means that one cannot be realized without the other goal being achieved. There are a lot of interlinkages between issues that we sometimes don't immediately see. For example, if I was to tell you that there is an interlinkage between health and education, or can you at least reflect on this? Are there any interlinkages between good health and good education or quality education? What would respond? Perhaps it would be that if we are not healthy, we won't be able to study well, and that would impact quality education. Some of you may say that if you don't have quality education, you won't have good doctors, good nurses, and that would impact healthcare again. Some of you would say that if you get good education, you also get awareness about hygiene and sanitation, etc., which also affects your health. So you can see that two issues, quite diverse from each other, are very close to each other. They are interconnected. Similarly, if you look at maybe things like, say, gender justice and reducing inequality. You would also perhaps see interlinkages where there's a lot of gender discrimination that takes place, where boys are supposed to do certain things, girls are supposed to do certain things, and that leads to a lot of discrimination between the two genders, and that also causes a lot of inequality of opportunities in the society. So if you look at that SDG framework, you would realize that there are a lot of interlinkages between the different goals. But there is one goal among these 17 SDGs that is considered like the Aladdin's lamp for the SDG framework. This does not mean that the other goals are less important than this particular goal, or this goal is more important than the others. By Aladdin's lamp, I mean that this goal is a prerequisite. This goal has to be achieved or has to be a part of all the other goals if SDGs are to be achieved. If you look at that framework, you will identify that this goal is SDG 16. SDG 16 basically focuses on peace, justice, and strong institutions, all of which you would agree are necessary for the achievement of the 17 SDGs. I have often had this, these questions, coming along. Perhaps some of you would also like to ask that. We believe that education is important. Education is key to the SDGs. I agree with you. SDGs, education is very important. But imagine, what goes into quality education. When you talk about quality education, what is it that you are looking for? Perhaps you're looking for a good school, a good institution there, with good teachers who are, qualified and they know how to teach. They can teach you well. You need a good atmosphere. You need a peaceful atmosphere to study. And that is basically at the core of SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. So no matter which goal you see, you will see that there is an interconnection with peace and justice and strong institutions, regardless of which goal has to be achieved out of these 17 SDGs. Basically, SDG 16 emphasizes that people everywhere need to be free of fear from all forms of crime and violence, and feel safe in their lives, no matter what their backgrounds. Also, to achieve the SDGs, we need effective and inclusive public and private institutions that can deliver justice, quality education and healthcare, fair economic and social policies, environmental protection, etc. So basically, SDG 16 focuses on reducing violence, crime prevention, anti-corruption, reducing child abuse, illicit trade, non-discriminatory laws, participatory governance, where citizens are equal stakeholders in the governance process, and you're not just voting and forgetting, your civic participation. So participatory governance and strong institutional frameworks. But why are we talking about this today? Why am I talking about SDG 16 today? Because SDG 16 brings us back to COVID-19, where we currently are, because it is closely linked to the Sustainable Development Goals right now. You can directly perhaps see, mentally, if you just think about it for a second, you can see how COVID-19 has impacted education. SDG 4 is education, for those who don't know. So COVID-19 has impacted education, which means SDG 4 has been affected. It is a pandemic, so it has impacted health, which is SDG 3. I told you that there are a lot of issues of domestic violence, cybercrime, discrimination, misinformation that are currently, prevalent during this COVID-19 period in the society right now. So this has a direct bearing on peace, justice, and strong institutions, SDG 16. Some of you may also say that environment, is getting cleaner. During the lockdown, we saw blue skies, pollution was less, rivers, became sort of, this revived slightly, or the flow came back. Of course, COVID-19 has also had an impact on environment, although that is not sustainable, because sustainable development is where people can go on with their lives. You can live your normal life and still take measures to address environment and other things. Environment has been cleaned during COVID-19 because people were at home, they were not going out, they were not leading normal life. So it's not a sustainable, way of, environmental protection. although it should be a learning for us that this is how environment can look, this is how it can be cleaned, and we must take steps towards it. So COVID-19 basically is a test of governments, of societies, of communities, and of individual citizens like us. Public emergencies like this threaten to cost many lives. They are already, a lot of lives have been lost so far, but they also pose additional risks to the global economy, social dynamics, human rights, and overall security and stability of nations. And that is why engagement of all of us, including young people and educators, is key to finding solutions and building resilient and inclusive societies. When we talk about resilient and inclusive societies, what does it mean? It means that in a society, wherever you stay, whether it's a village or a town or a district or a city or a mega city, wherever you stay, uh, it needs to be inclusive. It can't be dominated by one person or one community or one section of people. It should be inclusive. There should be freedom and independence for everyone to move around and do what they would like to do. Uh, they should have a voice in the decision making process of this society. So it should be inclusive. It should have a space for everyone from all backgrounds, uh, you know all backgrounds basically. And resilient means that no matter what crisis faces the society, whether it's a pandemic, whether it's a natural disaster, whether it's a social unrest, whether it's a political crisis, whatever it is, whether it's an environmental threat, societies have to come together, people have to come together, governments have to come together and work towards building resilience, towards overcoming these crises in a very open, inclusive fashion. UN always believes in this principle that we must leave no one behind. No matter what our response is to a particular crisis, it must be there for everyone. It must help everyone, it must impact everyone, and it must leave no one behind. All voices should be considered, and all people should be a part of this response. Do you agree with me that responding to emergencies like COVID-19 must also include an inviolable respect for human rights of people, especially of the marginalized, vulnerable, and socially and economically disadvantaged groups? I ask you this because over the last few months, you may have also seen uh, a lot of people, especially from the marginalized and vulnerable, communities, uh, facing the brunt of a lot of crisis, whether it's economic, economic brunt. They may have lost their livelihoods, they may have completely lost everything due to the lockdown or whatever measures were taken to contain. But also, somehow in our responses, a lot of people are being missed out. The voices of the marginalized and the vulnerable people are not coming out. Just so that vulnerable groups in such circumstances often include people who need special care, who need special support or extra support or protection during emergencies like this, because perhaps of their age, because of their disability, because they are at a heightened risk of abuse or neglect. Uh, you can maybe imagine children, minority groups, not only religious minorities, but other minorities as well, poor people, persons with moderate to serious illnesses, people with mental, disorders, uh, drug users, or people who are addicted to alcohol or other things, and persons with disabilities. Broadly, these would be vulnerable groups. Of course, this is not a complete list. There are a lot of other groups as well. For example, in the context of COVID-19, this list could also expand to prisoners, because when we talk about social distancing or physical distancing, often prisons are a space where social distancing cannot be easily enforced. So prisoners are vulnerable, migrants or refugees are vulnerable, HIV/AIDS patients or people with serious illnesses, serious or moderate illnesses, are threatened. The elderly are impacted. So the impact of the disease, and as well as the measures that are taken to contain this pandemic, has to be reviewed in this sort of a way to accommodate the concerns of these vulnerable groups. Now, since COVID-19 is menacing the whole of humanity, I always say this, that the virus is not discriminating against anyone. It is people who are discriminating against each other. You will see that COVID-19 has impacted all nations, whether they are advanced or whether they are not so advanced, whether they are developed or developing, whether you are rich or you are poor, whether you are whatever background you come from, no matter which country you're from, everybody is more or less equally impacted by COVID-19 or is at the risk of getting the virus. Uh, but still, it is us who discriminate against others, maybe because of their economic backgrounds or social backgrounds, or maybe with the way they look. We have often also started, suspecting people with COVID-19. We feel that, this or that person may be carrying the COVID-19 crisis. And this fear, this suspicion basically triggers a lot of discrimination in the society. And these things, I mean, it's not as if this is only limited to COVID-19 or, when once the virus goes, these things would also be forgotten because the memories of discrimination stay for a long time. If you remember, when we were young in school, there were always ways in which, we sometimes unconsciously at that time, at least, we, made fun of each other because of each other's looks or some reason, we gave each other titles or something like that. That is also in a way, discrimination, and the memories of that stay for a long time. Some of you may, agree with what I'm saying. So in these circumstances, when COVID-19 is menacing or has affected the whole of humanity, we must rise above differences and fight back together. We must also find ways to help those who are unable to protect themselves right now. This is the moment to step up for the vulnerable and address emerging social risks. And especially for young people like you who can take charge and create impact, this is a very opportune time, I would say. We have all heard about cliched lines that are, of course, very true, like youth are future of the world, or youth are future of the nation, youth power rocks, Yuva Shakti Zindabad, or youth are the hope for the planet. I'm sure you have come across these phrases or these lines sometime in your life. And many among us have also dreamt at this age of creating an impact in society, doing something substantive beyond our studies and normal life, or even if we are working, doing something beyond, what we are, beyond our normal professional life. We want to contribute something to the society, So this COVID-19 is a time for us to actually think about the learnings from this pandemic, the opportunities, the challenges that we have seen, and ways in which we can do something about this together. We have numbers on our side to begin with. South Asia is home to the world's largest youth population. India alone has one of the highest largest youth populations in the world. We have talents, we have skills, we have awareness. All that we need now are 3 C's: common vision, cooperation, and collaboration among the young people, among youth. Youth can play a prominent role in addressing the SDGs, building peace, and promoting the rule of law. The first step is to be more aware and enhance your knowledge on key social issues and SDGs. You are already aware, you're students of communication and law. I'm sure that you are all aware of what is going on in the society, different fields, but be more aware, enhance your knowledge on specific issues as well. Find out your interests, find out which issues interest you. SDGs can be a very good starting point for you because they more or less cover all the issues that you would like to perhaps work on. You could maybe look at SDG 3, 4, 16, etc. You could find out your interest, which issues interest you, and then enhance your knowledge about that issues, read about it, learn about it. There are a lot of resources available, and I'm sure that your school and UNODC will always be there to help you get some of these tools and these resources if you are interested in enhancing your knowledge on these things. Second step is figuring out your own skills, own talents or ideas to address a specific problem or specific SDG. Maybe you can look at SDG 16, for example. How do you promote peace and justice in the society? How do you reduce crime? How do you reduce, say, corruption in the society? What are your skills? Are you good at awareness? Are you good at artwork or songs or blogs? Do you write well? Can you design a social campaign? Are you good at technology? Can you create websites, apps, or other creative technological tools to help address some of these things? Are you good at theater? Are you good at dance? Could you use your talents to create awareness on certain things? So figure out your own skills and talents and use it to address our social problems, or at least try to find out ways. The third step is to connect and collaborate with educators. You have a fantastic faculty. I'm sure that they can guide you. Connect with experts related to that particular SDG or that particular social problem, and other youth networks. There are so many youth networks around, in the world right now. Tap into that, join some of these youth networks, create your own youth networks, and interact a lot with different people to get a sense of what is happening, and what can be done to address these social problems. Network-based activities and plans can be very, successful, very impactful, and very implementable. They are very easily implementable. So network-based approach is something that I would strongly recommend to all of you. The fourth step would be to adopt a solutions-focused approach. In fact, since you are communication students, perhaps a communications-focused approach to the SDGs. For instance, can we do something to address digital divides in education through communication tools? Can we, for example, look at audio recordings? UNODC recently, as soon as the lockdown started, we launched a series called the Lockdown Learners. This was primarily targeted at school students at the primary and secondary levels. And we realized that, there are so many school students who don't have access to the internet, or they have one device maximum at their homes, and they can't consume a lot of data. You can't hold a Zoom call because it would consume a lot of data. So how do we address this digital divide? So we used WhatsApp and audio recordings, the voice notes, to actually communicate, and it worked almost as well as a telephone call. We recorded something and we shared, and they responded immediately with an answer. So can we do something similar, to address digital divides using communication tools? Can we create a social campaign against stigma and discrimination? I've been informed that some of you are already doing something like that, but can we create a social campaign against discrimination in collaboration with UNODC? Can we create a mass information project to counter misinformation and fake news? For example, Mythbusters platform, or a WhatsApp groups where you can correct whatever wrong information is coming your way on WhatsApp or on social media. There is so much misinformation right now on social media that it needs a equal amount of correct information to flow in the in the social media space. So can we work around this in some way? Can we explore a network of citizen journalists or young journalists, young reporters, to focus on SDGs in each area or each district or each village? Think about it. I mean, these are some ideas for your reflection, whether it is as simple as enhancing awareness on social issues through Nukkad Nataks, or maybe recording a play or a song that can be shared more extensively, or whether it is more through technology-based things like creating an app or a website where anyone can access resources or information around SDGs. Anything is welcome. So anything that can address SDGs or a social problem to promote peace is a great service right now and has a great impact. And trust me, there are a lot of people actually looking for such communication or solutions, communication-focused solutions on the SDGs right now. And UNODC would be very willing to support any such initiatives that are, driven by you, driven by young people like you. And we offer you mentorship, we offer you knowledge support in creating something like that, through a network-based model. Uh, and for all of this, of course, UNODC offers you a strong platform to engage with through our Education for Justice program that I told you about. As part of Education for Justice, we have been working with young people and educators across the world, promoting youth action and from creating networks of ideapreneurs and problem solvers to address critical challenges facing the society and promoting the SDGs. We have developed also a range of material and resources for young people and educators to use to sharpen your knowledge, to become more aware, and to find ways to work with the United Nations and your governments more substantially. All these are openly available on our website, www.unodc.org/E4J, 4 in the numeral. Maybe you could do a simple Google search, UNODC Education for Justice. And, and these are all free to use tools. There is no cost involved. We believe that education does not need to be boring or dull. So there is a lot of material, that includes comics, it includes video games, board games, cartoon series, etc. The Zobs, in fact, are a very impactful cartoon series that have received a lot of acclaim from different parts of the world. So I urge you all to take a look at this and join hands with us on this. But what is it that you can do right now from home? Of course, we are not, promoting right now you stepping outside your houses because of, the COVID-19 situation. Please take care of all the precautions, stay safe, stay at home, and practice social distancing. But there are still a lot of things that you can do from home apart from your studies, which can actually contribute to doing something in the social space. Why? Because trust me, we are living through a very historic time, even if we don't realize it. 50, 60 years down the line, people would be looking at 2020 as a year that was a great crisis for the world. The way with which we look at the Titanic sinking 1912 or the world wars, similarly, COVID-19 will also be, looked at, studied, reflected on in the coming decades. And one question that, the coming generations will ask you 3-4 decades from now will be that how was it to be living during such a crisis situation? How was it to be living during this COVID-19 crisis? And what was your contribution in addressing some of these challenges that had come up? And it would be a matter of great pride for you if you actually had something substantial to say, that look, despite the limitations I had this to contribute, or I worked with a group of friends to do this, to address this specific problem. So understand and appreciate the history that you are living through, and think about how you can use your skills and talents to actually address these social issues, specifically around peace and the rule of law. I have a suggestion for you. How about you create amongst yourself a SDG 16 action group that UNODC and your school can guide and support, the Amity School of Communication. Through this group, you can engage in a wide range of impactful work, of course, collaborate with each other as well. Maybe an action group on advocacy, communications and advocacy for COVID-19 and SDGs, where you could submit paintings, artwork, short essays, poems, slogans, anything creative on COVID-19 and its linkages with different sustainable development goals, issues like gender-based violence, corruption, misinformation, discrimination, and cybercrime. Whatever we touched upon today, you could maybe create short videos on how do you think COVID-19 is impacting SDGs and the rule of law around you. Maybe you could do a panel discussion of sorts, how COVID-19 is impacting SDGs and the rule of law around you. Or maybe one message of peace or one message against discrimination that you would like to share with the world. Maybe some of you who are good at filmmaking could also maybe look at creating short films on digital divides, on SDG 16 and other social themes. Uh, some of you may also, volunteer online, maybe documenting SDG 16 and COVID-19 related issues. I'll be happy. Like specific instances of corruption that have taken place in your knowledge around you, small acts, gender violence if it has taken place, misinformation. What misinformation have you come across? What kind of discrimination have you seen around you? If those kind of things you could document, it will be very useful. If you're good at technology, perhaps you can create, with permission from your faculty, a blog or a website wherein all this work can be showcased. Maybe a game, online game to dispel misinformation or to promote fact checking, etc. Or finally, you could share your ideas for action. Design a social initiative or a small social startup or a campaign, and send us your thoughts, your ideas, what initiatives you have in your mind to address some of these issues. If not right now, that look at the future post COVID-19. How would you like to contribute to this fight for SDGs? And sometimes what happens is that what you want to do, but you don't know how to go about it. That's why we come in and we'll give you all knowledge, support, and mentorship, connecting you with experts for you to design that social initiative, which can be very impactful. And if selected, we promise that these solutions and your voices will be showcased at the highest UN platforms and within UNODC, and all UN agencies will actually, help support, your solutions, help in promoting your solutions. So, I'll just conclude by saying that understand your role in history right now. This is history being rewritten, being made and documented. And this is your time to actually leave something concrete, lead something concrete, and do something helpful for people that will actually help address, social problems and promote peace and the rule of law. Again, I would urge you to take a look at UNODC's Education for Justice program, and hopefully we can have some volunteers from some of you. It will be really wonderful. And please do feel free to connect for anything, in the future. I would love to hear from you. My email address is samarth.pathak@un.org. Please feel free to write in. It was wonderful to be here and talk to you. And I'll just conclude by thanking the Amity School of Communication, Patna, once again for this opportunity, and all my best wishes to you. I look forward to hearing from you and any questions or any things that you would like to say to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chi. That was indeed a very engaging conversation. Though the students can only listen, but you have made them think of a few perspectives. And that was quite on a positive note, that how this time is a historic year that we are living through, and how we'll remember it in the future. So yes, there are some questions that we can see. I'll put these questions to you. There is a question from Sudhanshu Ranjan.
Yeah.
He wants to ask you, sir, how youth can play a great role in achieving SDGs.
Okay. Sudhanshu, thank you so much for answering that, for asking that question. It's a very important thing. I touched upon this in my remarks. There are a lot of things that you can do. Again, think of what your talents are. Think of what your skills are, whether you're good at writing, whether you're good at maybe using communication tools since you're studying communications. If you're good at law, how can you use your legal skills? Whatever it is, even if it's extracurricular, you're good at dancing, you're good at music, how can you use it to promote the SDGs? So there are two steps involved. One is to familiarize yourself with the Sustainable Development Goals. Take a look at the 17 SDGs, find out which SDGs appeal to you, which SDGs are of interest to you, and complement it by doing a sort of an introspection, that what are your skills, how can you contribute. I will give you an example, a few examples actually. There is a group of, there are, a sister duo in Delhi, two sisters in Delhi who are studying in school. And they are very good at music. They have been learning classical music and singing. And they came to us and asked us the exact same question: how can we contribute to the SDGs? Similarly, there was one girl who from Punjab who actually raps. You know, she does a lot of rapping. So she said that what can I do? How this is my skill. How can I contribute? So we gave them a challenge that can you create a song on discrimination? You know, to counter discrimination. Can you create a song to promote peace? Can you create a rap on the SDGs? And they did it. You know, they took some time and they actually did it. So they used their skills to address a social problem. And this is all available on YouTube. It has been getting a lot of hits. And I mean, it's a very remarkable thing. Similarly, there was a group of young people in Bangalore who came to us saying that we are good at technology. We can do anything with, you know, your coding and games, etc. What do we do? So they eventually created a Mythbusters app, you know, a Mythbusters game where it's a true and false game. So you go online, there is a statement that comes. If you say false, you know, you get the correct information, and it's all peer reviewed. It's UN approved content there. So it's a very good tool to actually start. And this was done completely by the students. Similarly, there have been so many young people who have come to us with art, with blogs. Some of them have created institutional websites, you know, like institutional blog. You know, for example, there is an X school or an X university. They came and they, you know, created a blog for that place where all students could upload their content. There have been short films on digital divides that have been created, different things that have been done. So, Sudhanshu, I think that should answer your question. Use your skills, use your talents, and figure out which SDGs you would like to be involved in. Trust me, there is a lot of things that can be done. And I would be, you know, personally happy to guide you in any such way. We could work through Shweta ma'am if she agrees, and I would be very happy to take this forward with you.
Sure, sir. I will definitely connect him to you. We have quite a few questions, so I'll take up the other question by Ajit Kumar.
Yeah.
He wants to ask how universities can integrate academics and SDGs by helping them to contribute in their own domains of interest.
Ajiji, thank you so much for again this very important question actually, because this is something that we get a lot in the sense that a lot of content that is available on the SDGs is global, you know, global in nature, you know, and what is actually required is local content that, you know, people can relate to immediately. People know that, acha, ye hua hai, so this is connected to this goal. You know, that sort of an awareness is needed. So, and universities can play a very critical role in actually localizing and contextualizing this content through academics, through different modules, through different ways in which you connect with students. So under this Education for Justice program that I was you know, telling you earlier about, we have done exactly this. We have created modules for each of the you know, things under SDG 16, be it crime prevention, be it criminal justice, be it organized crime, be it ethics and integrity, be it corruption, cybercrime, gender, different aspects of gender-based SDGs. And we have created modules that can be contextualized very easily. You know, you can pick and choose according to your requirements, your academic requirements. So it's not specific to only communication. It is not only specific to law, because sometimes a question is that education for justice should ideally mean that it is only restricted for law. But no, students from or academics from sociology, from political science, from human rights, from even, you know, sciences have adopted some of these tools and resources to you know, teach about these things. For example, our content on cybercrime is being used in you know, in science courses, science-based courses, when they want to teach about how hacking takes place, how we should promote ethical behaviors on the internet. So I would strongly suggest you, Ajit ji, and other educators who are listening in, to connect with us for the Education for Justice program. There's a lot of free to use available content, and you can do exactly what your question is. Pick and choose according to your own domain of interest. I hope this answers your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. There is another question by Shubham Raj Singh. He wants to ask, how can we use literature to create social change?
A very interesting question, and I think, I think this should have been a specific session on its own, because it's something that I really believe in, literature. So any change, any social change that has come has its root in literature somehow. You have inspiring poems that have been written at different points of time, different, stories, novels have come out. You have essayists or novelists who have really reflected the realities on the ground through literature. You have writers like Munshi Premchand, who, you know, told you what the reality was at a specific period of time, and that is still timely. If you still go to those same places, you will perhaps not see much of a change. The social dynamics remain like that. Similarly, you have epics. You have things like Mahabharata and Ramayana, and I mean, not only in different religions. You have different epics, different literature that is there, which gives you an inroad into issues like integrity, ethics. It gives you a master class on how governments or kings are supposed to behave with citizens, how citizens are supposed to, be in a society, those sort of things. So literature does trigger a lot of social change. I'll give you an example. I really don't know if it comes under literature, but this is something that I'm sure that you will relate to. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Uh, one A young girl, and this also touches upon how young people can trigger social change. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the name of Anne Frank. A young girl who who lived through the Second World War, documenting in a diary the daily occurrences that were happening while they were hiding from persecution. So Anne Frank was a young girl, and she was hiding with her family during the Second World War to escape persecution. And they were there for a couple of months, or I mean, a few months or years. I'm not very sure about this, but they were there for a specific period of time, during which she maintained a daily diary, a daily journal of what was going through in her mind every day, what was happening around her, how her family was coping through, what were the thoughts that were coming into her mind. It was just a diary by a young girl. And today, it's a bestseller. It's one of the most successful books of all times. uh, People read it not just for its literary, it was a diary written by a young girl, but they read it because they want to see how it was to be living through a very historic period of time in history. How was a young girl living through during the Second World War? And trust me, this is such a small act. Even if we maintain a diary during this COVID-19 phase, maybe a video diary, because now technology has come, and a video log, maybe 70 years, 80 years down the line, people would be reflecting on it the same way as people looked at it, for this Anne Frank's diary. So literature does contribute a lot to social change. And if any of you are budding writers, budding poets, budding songwriters, rappers, whatever it is, I would strongly urge you to start writing or reflecting on social themes. Look at SDGs. You will always find a lot of different themes in the world, but start looking at SDGs as well. And you will find a lot of social satisfaction as well, personal satisfaction, when you use literature for the SDGs. I hope that answers your question, Shubham.
Sir, we do have quite a few of writers,
Yes.
authors, and poets who have been writing on different platforms. So yes, it will
We
be.
would, if some of you could maybe create like a ebook or a compilation of poems on SDGs, I think you don't know how successful that would be in the UN system, how how much we would appreciate it. So if any of you are thinking on those lines, please, we are there. So please please do explore this area as well.
Okay. Sir, we have another, I don't know whether this should be called a question. Yes. Sunny Pratap has asked you, sir, many a times I have tried to become a volunteer for UN, but I never succeeded. Please tell me, how can I become a volunteer?
Sunny, I'm sure that UN needs volunteers like you. UN, not only volunteers, professionals like you, and uh, people like you who are wanting to do something on social issues in a more systematic way. Uh, how can you be a volunteer? I would tell you from the basics. Start building your skills. Whatever it is, start excelling in it. Whether you are a writer, whether you are good at technology, whatever it is you're doing, whatever career you choose to adopt, uh, try to develop as much knowledge and expertise as you can while simultaneously applying for UN, positions or UN volunteer posts. There is a UN volunteers. There's a separate entity called UN volunteers. Go take a look at their website. Some of the UN agencies like UNODC, UNICEF, UNESCO, etc., UNDP, WHO, they do from time to time offer internships. Keep a track of this. Basically, the key word here is patience and perseverance. So keep applying while simultaneously enhancing your expertise. Also, volunteering for the UN does not mean that you have to be in the UN. Uh, if you are interested in a social cause, take it up. Do something about it. Engage with UN in different ways. Of course, I mean, try your best to engage with the UN as much as possible. But you can also do it side by side. You can also create your youth networks, as I told you. Work with other civil society organizations who are doing a lot of work. Some of them are also UN partner organizations. Work with academics, work with your educators. Start small. So start small, be patient, be perseverant, and be focused that, okay, I have to be a UN volunteer one day, and I will keep excelling in what I'm doing until I reach that post. I hope that answers your question, Sunny.
So there's another question from Shalini Singh. She's writing to you. Sir, this was really amazing and you have left many ideas amongst us.
Thank you,
As UNODC says that listening to children and youth is the first step to help them grow healthy and safe. I want to know, is there any such key for youth which they can follow to address the digital divide or peace and justice, which is the 16th goal of Sustainable Development Goals?
Yes, I would say two. Actually, listening to children and youth is the first step to help them grow healthy and safe. This is true for both things, for drugs as well as crime and other social things. Sometimes we don't, when we talk about youth issues, it's never the youth on the table. It's always the elders. So it's time to reclaim that position. It's time for young people to start speaking about issues, to start taking action, to start talking about youth issues. And to be aware that there are so many youth platforms available. There are youth policies that are, from time to time government releases. There are a lot of documents. I'm sure that not many of you are aware of this. So the first step is to actually be aware of these things and start talking about youth-related matters. Uh, for digital divides and peace and justice, or SDG 16, I would say education for justice, peace, and SDGs matters. That's the keyword, that's the buzzword. So no matter what you're studying, no matter which field you are, choosing to pursue, the beauty of SDGs is that it is not related, it is not only for communication student or humanities students. Even if you're an engineer, even if you're a doctor, you can still contribute to the SDGs. I mean, you do contribute to the SDGs. So my answer would be that no matter what you're studying, consciously start building education for justice, peace, and SDGs within the framework of what you're studying. There is a lot of content available out there, free to use. And I mean, that is something that is the key for young people. So gaining your knowledge, gaining expertise, and then finally taking action and speaking up, that is what matters. So education for justice, peace, and SDGs matters. That's the key word.
We have quite a few more questions, sir. But before I proceed, may I request Rahulji, our IT help, to give us 5 minutes more of time to conclude.
Yeah, please continue.
Thank you, Rahulji. So we have another question from Pragya Vats. She asks, if we have been writing on a particular topic such as fighting depression, what else can we contribute to our writing abilities? Any such topic that you would suggest?
Pragya, that's a very interesting question. Fighting depression, so mental health is a very key thing right now. And COVID-19 has also, brought the issue of mental health to the fore. There are so many people, not just you, but so many people who have been impacted in different ways. Some livelihoods have been lost. Some people are battling addiction at home. Some people are facing gender violence. There's a lot of mental health, issues that are there because, during this COVID-19. So writing on these themes is exceptional. It's something that is remarkable. I congratulate you for actually choosing, this area, which is not something that many people do. But what else can we contribute through our writing abilities? I would say teaching. Teaching something, teach somebody how to write, teach a youngster how to uh, maintain a daily diary, perhaps tell them how to write a short story, share their feelings, on paper. I think that is something that you can do through your writing abilities very well. Because, of course, I mean, you're a writer, you have written on depression, you can, of course, choose a lot of other areas. You could look at how, youth are coping with this crisis right now, how, anxieties have come to the forefront. There are so many themes right now, which I'll be happy to guide you, which in fact, Shweta ma'am also will guide you. But how about teaching a young person, maybe a younger sister, a younger brother, a younger friend, a junior from school, becoming a buddy to them, a mentor to them, and telling them, hey, if you are undergoing any depression, if you are, no matter what is happening, even if you're not undergoing depression, maintain a daily diary, express yourself, share your thoughts. I think that is a great gift that you can, give to somebody, a gift of writing. So this is something that I would leave to you, Pragya. But other formats you could also explore is, of course, poems, stories, maybe short plays or monologues on, other themes, SDGs related themes. That is something other than, teaching for you. But immediately, I mean, teaching came to mind, because suppose if one person is undergoing anxiety, they don't know how to get help, and you come to them with a ray of hope and tell them that, hey, you can express yourself. You don't have to share it with me. You don't have to share it with your elder, but you can at least write it down and express it. I think that will be a savior also for many. So consider it, Pragya.
Sir, I'm taking up the last question for the session now
Yes.
because we need to wind up also. This is
Yes.
a question from Gautam Gawali. Excuse me if I have pronounced that wrongly.
Right.
Creation of literature can change society, but there is some literature which has the intention to create barriers in social change, particularly in social sciences.
Right. Right. Okay. So, Gautamji, I think this is true for every content. If you have good content, you have bad content, you have dangerous content, you have different things. I mean, you have good people, bad people everywhere. What matters is that literature, by its own merit, you know, does trigger a lot of social change. And what we must be doing, as I told earlier, for example, if I mean it's not literature, but it will be literature at one point of time. But your social media posts, you have so much of social media literature coming in around. You have good, bad, you have dangerous, you have peaceful, you have all sorts of content. What matters is that people writing for the right things, for correct things, for peace, for justice. I don't think that can go wrong. So we should be encouraging literature on peace, on social issues, on social themes that integrate, that create unity, that don't create barriers. And as much literature that can be promoted like that. But I think at the end of it all, it depends on the user, the reader, what kind of material they're consuming. So I think Pragya can give us a few tips on how to write well and how, we can create literature for social change. But I think, good, bad is everywhere. So, that could be my response to this.
Well, I am sure that people do have certain questions, and for that, I think we'll have to call you once more
No.
some other time when you are also relatively free. With all this now, I would extend my thank on behalf of Amity University Patna, on behalf of my school, that you came and engaged us in this kind of a talk, where the engagement of youth is of prime importance. And as we keep saying that India is a young nation, it has the highest population of youth as of now. So if this population tries to strive for something, tries to fight for something, tries to establish a new norm, it will be great for the future generations also. So thank you, Samarji. Thank you so much. And we certainly do look forward to future association also. We can explore the ways in which we can collaborate, students' activities and other things. It will be a great platform for both the institutions.
Right.
So thank you, Samarji, on behalf of all the students. Thank you so much. And we look forward to listening from you again sometime.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and it was really delightful to be here today. Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
everybody who joined in, and for the amazing questions. Thank you.
Thank you, dear attendees. You all made it worthy because you have put up a lot of questions. I can still see a few questions dropping in, but I regret the time. I am sure Rahulji from our IT department has another webinar to attend. So we will have to wind this up here. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, attendees. Thank you. Good day, sir.
Bye.